Well, thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Setting the Tone, Effective Communication and Positive Energy in an Organization. I'm Greg Berry, Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. Since we're in a virtual setting, please excuse technical issues or glitches that may pop up. If you have an issue with your video or audio, refresh your screen or click the reconnect button to get back to the webinar right away. Also, this webinar is being recorded. We will upload it on our website by tomorrow. Today, we welcome Tracy Bennett Smith to our webinar series. Tracy earned her bachelor's degree in marketing from the Class School of Business in 1991. She has dedicated her career to working with nonprofits in Birmingham, serving as president of Alabama's National Multiple Sclerosis Society chapter, CEO at Kid One Transport, and executive director of the Alabama JDRF chapter. Today, she is president and CEO of Make-A-Wish Alabama, a position she has held since 2019. Effective communication and positive energy are at the core of creating the right culture in our organization. So at this time, I would like to officially welcome Tracy and turn things over to her. Thank you so much for coming on and being with us today.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. I hope everybody's doing well. Let me know if there's any audio issues, but we'll jump right in. Welcome, everyone. It sounds like we have a really good turnout. And yeah, go Blazers. I'm a UAB alumni in 1991, and it's just a fantastic school, and was really involved with the National Alumni Society years ago before I had kids. Then I've backed off, and now I'm really jumping back in and trying to get more involved with the university. So I'm so excited to be here. Sounds like we have a great group. And like Greg said, at today's session, we're talking all about setting the right tone as leaders to create the right culture in your organization. We're going to discuss what you can do as a leader to create a productive and encouraging culture, and how you can also help set the right tone for success through communication and also through positive energy. We'll also discuss effective communication and how you can adapt your communication style to get the most out of a conversation, and the power of energy, whether that energy is positive or negative in a work environment. We'll explore ways effective communication and positive energy, the ways that they are at the core of creating the right culture, and also how communication and positive energy can also affect attitudes, it can affect performance, and it can also affect productivity. So let's get started. I think I am driving the slideshow, so I'm going back and forth, so be patient with me as we navigate. We've already talked about me, so thank you, Greg, for that wonderful introduction. Like he said, I've spent over 20 years in nonprofit leadership. It's just truly a passion of mine. I spent a little bit of time just doing, as a communication strategist, doing consulting and working with individuals, small businesses, corporations, and government agencies, just on their way that they communicate. A lot of team building and strategic planning, but I missed leading a nonprofit. So I'm back at it. Absolutely love where I am now. Make-A-Wish Alabama is such a wonderful organization. I think there are a number of you on here that are familiar with what we do, but I got to give us a little bit of a commercial that we provide life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. I say I have the best job ever because I get to wake up every day and bring hope and joy to families who are going through things that you can't imagine. And so I have the best team. I work with the best team. We serve the whole state of Alabama. And if you want to get involved, just follow us on social media. It's just a wonderful organization. And we have just an incredible culture here, not only with our board and our staff, but with our volunteers. They're very dedicated to us. And I think a lot of it has to do with the culture that we have here in the organization. So at each organization that I've led, I would say that my board has always charged me with the number one priority has been to initially create a productive and successful culture. And the cultures were either there and needed to be revamped, there wasn't a culture at all, or the culture was fractured and it needed to be rebuilt. And so what I've always done is I've done this by building an environment of trust and respect, building an environment of communicating effectively, and creating a positive environment. So a lot of what we discussed today are really just elements of what I've incorporated into my leadership philosophy over the last 20 plus years that I've ran organizations, and how I work to set the tone every day. And it's one of those things that you work on daily. And whether you're a leader or just an employee without anyone that reports to you, you're still a leader in your own right. So that's what we're really going to talk about. And to really kick things off, I keep forgetting that I'm driving, so excuse my when I hesitate to move slides. But to kick things off, I want to show you a TED Talk by Simon Sinek. And many of you probably know who he is. For those of you who don't, he is a well-known author. He is a leadership expert, and he's an inspirational speaker. And it's a great way to set the tone for this session. So we're going to listen to it. It's about 11 minutes, and it really talks about basically, he articulates it much better than I do about how my philosophy is in leadership and what we'll talk about that work environment. So Greg, whenever that video is ready.
There's a man by the name of Captain William Swenson who recently was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions on September 8th, 2009. On that day, a column of American and Afghan troops were making their way through a part of Afghanistan to help protect a group of government officials, a group of Afghan government officials who'd be meeting with some local village elders. The column came under ambush and was surrounded on 3 sides. And amongst many other things, Captain Swenson was recognized for running into live fire to rescue the wounded and pull out the dead. One of the people he rescued was a sergeant, and he and a comrade were making their way to a medevac helicopter. And what was remarkable about this day is, by sheer coincidence, one of the medevac medics happened to have a GoPro camera on his helmet and captured the whole scene on camera. It shows Captain Swenson and his comrade bringing this wounded soldier who'd received a gunshot to the neck. They put him in the helicopter, and then you see Captain Swenson bend over and give him a kiss before he turns around to rescue more. I saw this, and I thought to myself, where do people like that come from? What is that? That is some deep, deep emotion when you would want to do that. There's a love there. And I want to know, why is it that I don't have people that I work with like that? You know, in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. We have it back. Right? So I asked myself, where do people like this come from? And my initial conclusion was that they're just better people. That's why they're attracted to the military. These better people are attracted to this concept of service. But that's completely wrong. What I learned is that it's the environment. And if you get the environment right, every single one of us has the capacity to do these remarkable things. And more importantly, others have that capacity too. I've had the great honor of getting to meet some of these who we would call heroes, who've put themselves and put their lives at risk to save others. And I asked them, why would you do it? Why did you do it? And they all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. It's this deep sense of trust and cooperation. So trust and cooperation are really important here. The problem with concepts of trust and cooperation is that they are feelings, they're not instructions. I can't simply say to you, trust me, and you will. I can't simply instruct 2 people to cooperate, and they will. It's not how it works. It's a feeling. So where does that feeling come from? If you go back 50,000 years to the Paleolithic era, to the early days of Homo sapien, what we find is that the world was filled with danger. All of these forces working very, very hard to kill us. Nothing personal. Whether it was the weather, lack of resources, maybe a saber-toothed tiger, all of these things working to reduce our lifespan. And so we evolved into social animals, where we lived together and worked together in what I call a circle of safety, inside the tribe, where we felt like we belong. And when we felt safe amongst our own, the natural reaction was trust and cooperation. There are inherent benefits to this. It means I can fall asleep at night and trust that someone from within my tribe will watch for danger. If we don't trust each other, if I don't trust you, that means you won't watch for danger. Bad system of survival. The modern day is exactly the same thing. The world is filled with danger, things that are trying to frustrate our lives or reduce our success, reduce our opportunity for success. It could be the ups and downs of an economy, the uncertainty of the stock market, It could be a new technology that renders your business model obsolete overnight. Or it could be your competition that is sometimes trying to kill you. It's sometimes trying to put you out of business, but at the very minimum is working hard to frustrate your growth and steal your business from you. We have no control over these forces. These are a constant and they're not going away. The only variable are the conditions inside the organization. And that's where leadership matters, because it's the leader that sets the tone. When a leader makes the choice to put the safety and lives of the people inside the organization first, to sacrifice their comforts and sacrifice the tangible results so that the people remain and feel safe and feel like they belong, remarkable things happen. I was flying on a trip, and I was witness to an incident where a passenger attempted to board before their number was called. And I watched the gate agent treat this man like he had broken the law, like a criminal. He was yelled at for attempting to board one group too soon. So I said something. I said, why do you have to treat us like cattle? Why can't you treat us like human beings? And this is exactly what she said to me. She said, "Sir, if I don't follow the rules, I could get in trouble or lose my job." All she was telling me is that she doesn't feel safe. All she was telling me is that she doesn't trust her leaders. The reason we like flying Southwest Airlines is not because they necessarily hire better people, it's because they don't fear their leaders. You see, if the conditions are wrong, we're forced to expend our own time and energy to protect ourselves from each other. And that inherently weakens the organization. When we feel safe inside the organization, we will naturally combine our talents and our strengths and work tirelessly to face the dangers outside and seize the opportunities. The closest analogy I can give to what a great leader is like being a parent. If you think about what being a great parent is, what do you want? What makes a great parent? We want to give our child opportunities, education, discipline them when necessary, all so that they can grow up and achieve more than we could for ourselves. Great leaders want exactly the same thing. They want to provide their people opportunity, education, discipline when necessary, build their self-confidence, give them the opportunity to try and fail, all so that they could achieve more than we could ever imagine for ourselves. Charlie Kim, who's the CEO of a company called NextJump in New York City, a tech company, he makes the point that if you had hard times in your family, would you ever consider laying off one of your children? We would never do it. Then why do we consider laying off people inside our organization? Charlie implemented a policy of lifetime employment. If you get a job at NextJump, you cannot get fired for performance issues. In fact, if you have issues, they will coach you and they will give you support, just like we would with one of our children who happens to come home with a C from school. It's the complete opposite. This is the reason so many people have such a visceral hatred, sort of anger at some of these banking CEOs with their disproportionate salaries and bonus structures. It's not the numbers. It's that they have violated the very definition of leadership. They have violated this deep-seated social contract. We know that they allowed their people to be sacrificed so they could protect their own interests. Or worse, they sacrificed their people to protect their own interests. This is what so offends us, not the numbers. Would anybody be offended if we gave a $150 million bonus to Gandhi? How about a $250 million bonus to Mother Teresa? Do we have an issue with that? None at all. None at all. Great leaders would never sacrifice the people to save the numbers. They would sooner sacrifice the numbers to save the people. Bob Chapman, who runs a large manufacturing company in the Midwest called Barry Waymiller, in 2008, was hit very hard by the recession, and they lost 30% of their orders overnight. Now, in a large manufacturing company, this is a big deal, and they could no longer afford their labor pool. They needed to save $10 million. So, like so many companies today, the board got together and discussed layoffs. And Bob refused. You see, Bob doesn't believe in head counts. Bob believes in heart counts. And it's much more difficult to simply reduce the heart count. And so they came up with a furlough program. Every employee from secretary to CEO was required to take 4 weeks of unpaid vacation. They could take it any time they wanted, and they did not have to take it consecutively. But it was how Bob announced the program that mattered so much. He said, it's better that we should all suffer a little than any of us should have to suffer a lot. And morale went up. They saved $20 million. And most importantly, as would be expected, when the people feel safe and protected by the leadership in the organization, the natural reaction is to trust and cooperate. And quite spontaneously, nobody expected, people started trading with each other. Those who could afford it more would trade with those who could afford it less. People would take 5 weeks so that somebody else only had to take 3. Leadership is a choice. It is not a rank. I know many people at the senior-most levels of organizations who are absolutely not leaders. They are authorities, and we do what they say because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them. And I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations who have no authority, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them, and they have chosen to look after the person to the right of them. This is what a leader is. I heard a story of some Marines who were out in theater, and as is the Marine custom, the officer ate last, and he let his men eat first. And when they were done, there was no food left for him. And when they went back out in the field, his men brought him some of their food so that he may eat. Because that's what happens. We call them leaders because they go first. We call them leaders because they take the risk before anybody else does. We call them leaders because they will choose to sacrifice so that their people may be safe and protected, and so their people may gain. And when we do, the natural response is that our people will sacrifice for us. They will give us their blood and sweat and tears to see that their leader's vision comes to life. And when we ask them, why would you do that? Why would you give your blood and sweat and tears for that person? They all say the same thing. Because they would have done it for me. And isn't that the organization we would all like to work in? Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, so that kicks us off. It's pretty powerful stuff. Paige Perry, you're right. Paige is a friend. I see the comments. That didn't age well in the Southwest, but it was a good example of why did that person do the way that they did, because they were devoted to that company because they felt safe. And so we're going to jump right in it, because I feel like that is such a powerful message. What he said, it's so true about leadership and about authority. And we've probably all been in environments where we work with people that weren't leaders per se, but they were authority over us. And so I'm passionate about the fact that as a leader, part of our jobs are to create that safe environment that includes trust and respect. That's the foundation of everything in terms of leadership. And once you have that, the world is your oyster. You can do pretty much anything because your team is motivated, and that motivation is contagious. And so in addition to that, I also feel like when you create that environment for your team, you're not just surviving, but you're thriving, and you're allowing your team to thrive and succeed. And so it's so critical. And you heard Simon say a leader is a choice, not a rank. Anyone can be a leader in an organization, and regardless of your authority, leaders should want to create an environment of leaders. That's what we do here at Make-A-Wish. We want to raise leaders in this organization. And it's not an idea of I'm in charge, so listen to me, or I know better than you, so do what I say. It's more about supporting each other to succeed, for you as an individual to succeed, and for you as an organization to succeed. So when you create a culture with a safe environment that allows teams to take risk, allows teams to fail, to pivot, to share ideas, opinions, and feedback, that's where you see the secret sauce and that magic. So I believe there are really two overarching areas to focus on and how you do that. And it is effective communication and it's positive energy. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's talk about effective communication first. Effective communication. So communication basically affects everything that happens in an organization. It can be one of the greatest strengths you have in an organization, and it can also be one of your greatest weaknesses. So when you focus on effective communication and making it a priority, that's a critical step in ensuring that it is a strength in your organization. And the definition of effective communication is really a communication between two or more people where the intended message is successfully delivered, received, and understood. Not just delivered, it's got to be received and it's got to be understood. Adaptive communication is really the ability for someone to adjust the way they communicate in order to get the optimum result. So communication is really more than just speaking clearly. It's about understanding who you're speaking to, how your communication may be perceived by that person, and then adapting the way you communicate to get the most out of that conversation. We all have the power to set the tone every time we interact, every time we communicate, regardless if you're a leader or not. And so the basic foundation of leadership truly is creating that environment of trust, like we said, of cooperation, of respect. And like Simon Sinek stated, when we feel safe, the natural reaction is to trust and cooperate. So I used to always use the word, whenever I create an environment or I create a culture, I want to make sure everybody has the tools they need to succeed, and I want to make sure they're comfortable. But then I saw that Simon Sinek TED Talk. I'm like, the word's not comfort. It's about safety. It's about them to be able to feel safe amongst their peers, amongst their subordinates, amongst the people they report to, who work under them, to create that environment. And it's our responsibility to do that. We absolutely set the tone. So what does that all mean? We're talking about setting the tone as a leader in an organization, but we're also talking about the fact that we are all leaders regardless if you are in authority or not. So it doesn't matter what your rank is, what your title is, or what your position is in an organization. Remember, just because someone is in a position of authority does not make them a leader. I don't know about you, but I've worked in situations where I reported to people that were not leaders. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about being a empowering leader, is because I've been in those situations where I remember saying, if I ever get into leadership, that's not how I'm going to lead. So let's talk a bit about how we communicate, how we respond, regardless of our position. And this also is a really good tool for our personal life as well. Because as human beings, we have to communicate. We just have to, whether that communication is remote, and we've seen a lot of that during COVID, as you all know, whether we communicate face-to-face, whether it's written, whether it's verbal, nonverbal, communication is a part of our daily lives. But how we communicate is critical. We all have been frustrated with someone in our lives. More likely, you're probably frustrated with someone right now at this moment. You may have a coworker that you think isn't pulling their weight. You may have a boss who doesn't appreciate you. You may have an employee who isn't doing what you've asked them to do. It goes on and on. I mean, also in your personal life, maybe you have a sister that says something that offended you, or your in-laws are trying to tell you how to raise your children, or your neighbor let their dog use the bathroom on your lawn. Whatever it is, there's always a situation where you're probably frustrated with someone. And so it may not even be frustration. It could be just you're not connecting with someone that you're interacting with. And so resolving the way you communicate, or resolving miscommunication, or confrontations, or even proactively avoiding unnecessary confrontations, that can be difficult, and it can be awkward, and it's hard, and it can be messy. But if you're aware of it, then you can adapt the way you communicate to change the way that a situation is. So we have a choice. You can either handle that situation in a positive way, or you can handle it in a negative way. So choose wisely. And to many people, this comes naturally. To many people, it's an innate trait just to approach things in a positive manner. But others, they have to work on it. And so whichever category you fall into, being aware of that is key. And when you're self-aware of your communication or your reaction, then you are able to adapt that and change the way you do that effectively. So now we're going to spend a few minutes on really dissecting communication just a bit, like how we communicate. So we communicate many ways throughout our daily lives. It's remote, it's face-to-face, it's written, it's verbal, it's nonverbal. We communicate face-to-face with others. We receive messages on 3 basic levels. It's verbal behaviors, voice inflections, and it's nonverbal. So verbal, as you know, is actual words we use to communicate. Voice inflections are the way somebody says something. This could include tone. It could include the speed or the emotions or the pace, your cadence, your volume. It could be the way someone says something that can dramatically change the meaning of the words that are being spoken. The very same words said in another way with different voice inflections could take on an entirely different meaning. And then, nonverbal behavior, that's very powerful. That's body language. That's facial expressions. Those are gestures. That's someone that might be using while they're communicating. It could be someone crossing their arms like this and closing up their body versus open arms. It could be a defensive posture versus a welcoming posture. And it could even be facial expressions. If someone's talking and they're bowing up with their face, that, or if they're smiling. It's all of those things. Someone who you're communicating with is absolutely reading those. And so did you know that 65% of communication is based on tone and body language, and only 35% is based on the actual words spoken? So you really need to be aware about how you're carrying yourself, if you're leaning into a conversation, if you're being warm and inviting with your facial expressions, if you're closed up with your body. That is actually more important than the actual words you are saying. And then with the face-to-face communication, 55% is based on body language, 38% is based on voice inflections, and only 7% are the actual words used. So this is why it's so important to pay close attention, not only to what is being said, but how it's being said, because where the true meaning of the communication can be found is the body language, the inflections, and the words are really secondary. And then with non-face-to-face communication, because there are nonverbal cues to observe, that's telephone, that could be remote where there's no video. The influence of voice inflection is dramatically goes up. It's 88% of the message being sent to the person is based on voice inflection, and only 12% is lasted for actual words themselves. So the actual words themselves account for such a small percentage of the total, because there's so many different interpretations of that message based on such things as nonverbal behaviors or voice inflections that may not have been initially initiated. So you really need to think about it when you're over the phone or when you're over conferencing and there's not a video on. What is the tone of your voice? They can't read your body language. They're hearing what you're saying, but if it is an aggressive tone, what is that message? So you really have to be aware of that. And by becoming more effective communicators, you need to pay attention to all three of these things: verbal, nonverbal, and voice inflections. And when you're communicating with others, think about where you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what the other person on the other end is perceiving. Are they on camera? Are you on the phone? Are you in person? And by becoming more conscious of this and even in control of the way you say things, then you can help ensure that you're being understood by the people. We need to be really careful in our communication, not to send what is often called mixed messages. And that's when there is this sense of when the actual words being spoken are not consistent with the speaker's voice or their body language. It confuses others. It makes them unsure of what the real message is being sent. And so you really need to think about, what am I saying to this person, and how do I need to say it in the right tone and in the right manner with my body language? So we have to really be aware of not just what we say, but how we say it and our body language. If you think about, if I said, "Did you hear Jack and Diane broke up?" and I was like all excited about it, that's different than, "Oh God, did you hear Jack and Diane broke up?" Or there's a totally different delivery in that. Or what if you go into a store and I said, "Hello, how can I help you? What can I help you with?" versus, "Can I help you?" and not even look up from my phone. And we've all been there too. It's all about body language and inflection and tone too. So how do I do this as a leader? I developed over 7 key elements about my life approach to setting the tone. I feel like for me, a lot of it comes innate. People that know me know I do have I feel like I lead with kindness and I lead with loving and empowerment. And so I really dissected it. And I said, what is it that I do that I want to do? Going back to saying, I want to make sure everyone's comfortable that works with me. I really want to make sure that they're safe. So what are the things that I do and how I communicate to create that environment? Because as a leader, if I create a more of a negative environment, everybody will follow suit. If I create a more of a kindness, loving environment, everybody hopefully will follow suit. And so I have 7 approaches to that. The first one is humility is a good thing. Humility is a good thing. The definition of humility is the quality or state of not thinking you're better than other people. The quality of state of being humble. By being humble, you realize it's not about you. You listen better. You connect more with who you're interacting with. Those who are humble feel the rest of us are pretty interesting. Those with humility have a genuine desire to discover what other people can offer. They are intrigued by how others think, how others feel differently from them. The greater our humility, the greater our fascination is with the world around us, and the more we learn. Humility truly is an act of courtesy. So I try to practice humility when I can. It's really a good thing. The second thing I try to do is really be ego aware. Be aware of your ego. Everyone has one. Egos can be good things. They can help drive us, but don't let it dictate your actions. A strong ego is very dangerous. And we need to understand that ego really is what an ego really is and how to manage it. There's not enough time to delve into this. We won't go deep into philosophical about this topic, but being ego aware is so incredibly powerful. And most people, their actions are based on their ego. And so when you're ego aware, you really understand where your thoughts are coming from and how you respond. And so you really have to think about, why am I responding this way? Is it my ego that's driving me this way? Is it the situation? Again, self-awareness to that is a very powerful tool. And that's all they are. When you're thinking about that within your ego, it can be either self-sabotaging or it can be very powerful. So you want to make sure that you're very level set with that. You don't want an inflated ego, but you also don't want a deflated ego with deflated thoughts. Our ego can truly direct how we interpret everything that goes on in our daily experience. We know that our perception of any event will determine what we get from that experience. Was it a positive experience? Was it negative? Was it an opportunity or a setback? The answers depend on your perception of it. Our ego exercises a very strong influence on our perception and how we respond to situations. And most of the time, we have no awareness of this influence. So I would really challenge you to read up on ego. Eckhart Tolle, he has a book called New Earth, and it's a very powerful book about really understanding your ego. It was life-changing for me, actually. The third thing is self-evaluation is a must. But there, again, needs to be a balance on that. Self-evaluation is very healthy as long as it's productive and it's not self-sabotaging. So you really want to get out of your head when you have negative thoughts or beat yourself up on how you handled a situation. Don't live between your ears. Don't psychologically sabotage yourself. But you do, if you feel like you were in a communication situation, you had a communication with someone and it didn't sit right, then really self-evaluate. Think about, how did I say something? What was my body language like? What was my tone like? Could I have handled that differently? Really, again, that you fall into humility and being ego aware and really analyzing it. And then maybe the next time you could change the way you approach that, or the words you said, or how you said it. You are in control of that. So make sure that you practice some self-awareness and self-evaluation. The other thing I try to practice is don't be hypersensitive. It's usually not about you. If someone is having a bad day or they come across aggressive in their communication tone, let that slide off. Don't be hypersensitive about it, because hypersensitivity, you can really become catty. You can be judgmental. And so again, you need to check yourself on how you're responding to the way people are communicating with you. And you can set the tone by changing the tone in your response. And then also make sure you give the benefit of the doubt. I preach this all the time. Don't pass judgment. Assume the best in everyone and allow them to explain themselves. I know in every work environment, people are always, why is this person late? Or why are they leaving early? Or why aren't they here? Or what's going on? You never know what's going on in someone's life. And so I always say, let's just stay in our lanes, give them the benefit of the doubt. Whenever I've ever questioned someone or I've become judgmental, I usually have egg on my face because I'm usually wrong, because there's usually an explanation. Again, because I've created a safe space for these people to live and work effectively. And so you want to make sure when there is something that you may question, give them the benefit of the doubt and let them explain their situation. Maybe something going on that you have no idea. So I try to practice that daily. Also, the sixth thing is just be professionally and personally mature. I always talk about being professionally mature in meetings and the way you communicate and the way you interact with your coworkers. Make sure you're being mature in those situations, and that how you communicate, make sure you're communicating professionally, and what you're talking about, make sure that's professional. And even in your personal lives, take the high road on things. It's just, life is really too short to get catty and judgmental. And then the last, I don't know if I messed that slide up. And then the last thing I would say is just be kind. I really try to lead with kindness. Being positive in a negative situation is very powerful. Don't feed the negativity. My motto is always to lead with kindness. Whenever there's negativity, kindness really, can always win. Kindness can be stronger than that. It goes back to that positive and negative is very powerful. So you want to make sure you practice that. All right, I need to talk faster. We're running out of time already. All right, so are you a good listener or a bad listener? One of the most important elements of being an effective communicator is being a good listener. So what do you think you are? Are you a good listener or a bad listener? Do you interrupt often or try to finish other people's sentences? Do you do that? Do you jump to conclusions when you're in a conversation? Do you overly parent and answer with advice even when not requested? I will tell you, people usually do not like unsolicited advice, so we all have to practice that. Do you make your mind up before you have all the information? Are you a compulsive note taker? Do you not give any response afterward, even if you said you would? Are you impatient? Do you lose your temper when hearing things you don't agree with? Do you try to change the subject to something that relates to your own experience? Do you think more about your reply while the other person is speaking than what he is saying? Do you do that? If you do that, you may not be that good of a listener. So let's talk about that. We're going to do a listening questionnaire real quick. And so we are now going to do that. So this is a rating where you're going to rate yourself a 1 if you always do it, or a 5 if you never do it. And you're going to add those up. So, and we only have 6 questions, so you can probably do this in your head. So when you're listening to another person, do you get distracted? Do you get distracted? Rate yourself on that. When you listen to another person, are you listening only to the facts? Think about that one. When you're listening to another person, do you interrupt? I have a bad problem. I really have to work on that one. I interrupt a lot because I'm so excited about the conversation. And so I really have to work on that one. When you are listening to another person, do you assume the other person already knows? Or do you tune out? Or do you ignore the nonverbal cues? Think of what you do with those questions. Add up real quick what you think you are, and then we will show you the results. And so this is the score of listening with those 6 questions. The listening questionnaire is, if you scored 31 to 35 points, you are an effective listener. Congratulations to you. If you are 21 to 30 points, you're a good listener. So again, congratulations, a good solid listener. If you scored 14 to 20, maybe not so good. You might need to go back and look at those tips and practice some of those listening skills and communication skills, excuse me. And then if you scored less than 13, oh my goodness. Ooh, you got a lot of work to do. So you're now self-aware. So now what can you do to be a better listener? All right, so let's talk about that. So if you scored 20 or below, you may want to focus on your listening skills. And here are some tips on how to be a better listener. Paraphrase the message to who you're talking to in order to confirm your understanding. Putting the message in your own words, you concentrate more on what was said, and it's making you a good listener. So just paraphrase when you're in a conversation with someone. Make sure you paraphrase what they're saying. Repeat the message. That helps you remember what was said. By doing this, the person you're communicating with, they're more satisfied that you've heard them, you've heard their message correctly. You're ensured that you're not only listening, but you're really trying to understand what they said. And then probe for missing information. By requesting or asking questions, you can find out any information that may have been missing in the communication that you need or want. And then clarify is the fourth one. And clarify any points that you don't completely understand. This also ensures that you have heard exactly what the participant intended for you to communicate to you. And then the fifth tip would be, remember the important points of the message for future applications at the follow-up conversation. This helps you retain the most important points of this communication, and it helps you to communicate that message if the conversation picks up at a later date. All right, so those are points on how to be a better listener. So just to review, setting the tone for me, which I suggest you adapt as well, is I try to integrate those 7 life approaches that we talked about. Listen, listen, listen as much as you can. Try your best to be a good listener, and that helps you be a good communicator. Find a common topic to connect with someone when you are in a conversation or communication, because whenever you can find something that you have in common, that creates that rapport with that person and that bond. And then try to adjust your communication style. We work on that all the time at Make-A-Wish. We are all trying to learn more about each other and about our teams and our departments and how we communicate. We're big proponents of the Enneagram. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but we all know what our number is. And a lot of that really dissects on how we receive communication and how we communicate. That helps us be better communicators. And so that helps us adjust when we communicate. If I communicate with an employee and I know they want just the facts, they don't want small talk, that I know I communicate differently with that employee versus one that really wants to spend time getting to know each other before we go into some more robust conversations. All right, so we need to rock and roll. We only have 15 minutes left. So now we're going to move into, I hope everybody's doing good. Looks like there's some chatting in the chat boxes. And I think Greg is monitoring that. So we're going to shift now into energy. Full disclosure, a lot of this information I got, we had an energy session at one of our national conferences at Make-A-Wish, and it was so powerful. I got with our HR person, got the information. I said, can I share this with our team? And can I share it when I do my presentations? And he said, absolutely. So shared it with my team here. We talk about the power of positivity and energy, and it was just wonderful. So I want to share it with y'all today. So why is positive energy important in the workplace? Why is it? Well, positive energy is important in the workplace because a lot of factual information. Did you know that the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics reported that negativity costs businesses $3 billion a year due to its harmful effects? Research shows that people with negative moods and negative attitudes devote significant time and energy to their bad mood and bad situations, which hinder performance in a workplace. And research has also shown that negativity has a significant impact on individual and organizational creativity, decision-making, job performance, and ultimately financial success. And 90% of anxiety at work is created by 5% of one's network, the people who zap your energy. And you think about it, we've all probably been in those situations, the negative energy and bad energy. Going back to Simon Sinek and my philosophy, if you create that safe environment, you can have one person destroy that. They can poison your culture with negativity. And that is one thing, like I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but and everybody that knows me knows, again, that I lead with kindness. But when someone, whether they know it or not, when we're in a situation and I'm in a culture and I'm creating a culture and someone comes in and brings negativity, that's where I have a low tolerance for that, because it's so unnecessary and it can absolutely sabotage an environment. So let's talk about negative energy. Negative energy in the workplace goes far beyond the walls of the office or the cubicle. It permeates attitudes, and attitudes drive behaviors, and behaviors drive outcomes. Negative energy in the workplace affects customer relationships, follow through, urgency, peak awareness, energy, motivation, all of those things that can absolutely destroy a work environment. But let's talk about positive energy. I like to talk about that a lot more. Positive energy, simply put, is positive energy is a group of positive attitudes, emotions, and of thinking patterns. Generosity, kindness, empathy, optimism, enthusiasm, all are aspects of positive energy. Some people seem to come by positive energy naturally, while others must work hard to cultivate it. It's also a practice that you have to practice every day. And so why is it important in the workplace? And it's important in the workplace because energy and lack of energy is real. Your energy determines the energy and success of those around you. All energy is not neutral, and negativity is contagious just as much as positivity is contagious. How you contribute to your work environment is as important as what you contribute. And that is, again, very, very powerful. So the science behind this is research has shown that negative attitudes can affect your intelligence and your ability to think. Even a small amount of negative brain activity can lead to a weakened immune system. Isn't that amazing? And scientific research indicates that negativity is a contagion akin to a cold or a flu. If you think about if someone that's negative in your office and how they work and how that brings an environment down, it physiologically can affect you. I mean, I've had that in situations, and it's amazing how just an attitude can affect another person. A study of the transfer of attitudes recursively, I can't say that word, effect demonstrates that psychological processes of transfer of negativity is a powerful, powerful thing. And I love this quote: positive thoughts, words, and actions create positive feelings, and positive feelings generate positive energy. And that's, again, the secret sauce of creating that positive work environment. It's a practice that if every day, again, here at Make-A-Wish, even like for the holidays, I gave everybody a daily book on positivity, and it's every day there's a journal of a positive quote. We practice positivity every day, but it's a constant work in progress. We are always working on ourselves to make sure we're being positive and in a realistic way. I mean, what we do, we have very, very dark days. We have very hard days where we lose children, their families are struggling. And so we want to be realistic. We have opportunities where we vent and we support each other, and we do have bad days, but we don't live in that. We live in that world for a time, and then we know it's time to move on. So when we talk about positivity, it's not a false sense of positivity. It's if you operate like that on a daily basis, you still have that time where you just may have a bad day, and that's okay. And that's where, when you have a safe environment, you have others that are there to support you during those dark days or during those bad days. And let's move on to 6 ways to protect yourself and your organization from negative energy and to sustain positive energy. You focus on the solutions and not the problems. When there's a problem, you talk about it. There may even be areas and times where you need to vent, but make that time limited, and then you move into, okay, what are we going to do about the situation? What are we going to do to resolve the problem? You don't live in this negativity of complaining about it. The other thing is, don't feed the drama. There's always drama in a workplace environment. There's always drama in personal life with friend groups. Don't feed that drama. Rise above it. If you have someone that lives in that drama and that chaos, rise above it and don't participate. And then also watch your boundaries. Watch your boundaries with your coworkers, with the people you report to, also in your personal life. And stop trying to fix everyone and everything. That's the other thing, is there are people that may be struggling with things. If they come to you and they want to talk to you, what I try to say, I tried to practice is, do you want just a shoulder to lean on? Do you want to vent, or do you want me to help you with solutions? I always try to ask first, because nobody wants unsolicited advice. So just because someone comes to you to talk to you about something doesn't mean they want you to fix everything. So again, make sure you're communicating that effectively. And then respond, but don't react. So if it's a negative situation, you want to make sure that you're responding, but you're responding in a positive way, but don't react to that in a negative way. And then the other thing is really self-care is important. Again, we talk about that in the organization that I work with Make-A-Wish. We're always talking about self-care. Again, is our very fulfilling, best job ever, but it's very hard. We have incredible events. We work long hours, and then we also have incredible mission granting wishes, but it's hard and it's demanding. And so we're always focusing on self-care. We make sure we're having fun, and we make sure we're taking breaks, and we're also checking on each other to make sure everybody's okay. So focus your energy. Rein in your thoughts and emotions so you can be centered and focused. Work on accomplishing your goals. These are ways to build your individual energy. Work towards your goals. It creates a confidence that shows how much you believe in yourself and what you're seeking to achieve. And then personal affirmations each day. Through positive affirmations, you start making positivity a habit that your mind will naturally gravitate towards those even when you're not trying. Again, what I do on those daily, I look at a daily journal. It's a positive quote. I start my day with a small meditation on that, and I think in a positive way, and it sets that tone. The more you practice that, the more it becomes habit, becomes policy, and it just becomes a part of your daily routine. And then find what's positive in others. When you're talking to someone, try to focus on something that makes them great. People will build personal positive energy since your presence awakens some positivity within them. So when you're interacting with them, if you acknowledge something that's positive, you look great today. That's a great shirt. Tell me about your vacation. Something that's positive to them that they want to share emits positivity within them. And keep your posture open. We were talking about body language and communication style earlier. Humans are wired to respond to body language instinctively. So you've got to make sure that body language, you're aware of that. And then also perform random acts of kindness. Compliment others, like I said earlier, do something nice. Everyone desires to be genuinely acknowledged. The more you do that and the more you practice that, the more it becomes just a natural thing that you do. So if you don't do that, I would really encourage and challenge you to say, I'm going to do this. Once a day, I'm going to say something kind to somebody, to a stranger. Once a day, I'm going to open the door for a stranger. The more you do that, the more it creates a habit that becomes natural to you. This one I like. Another thing to build an individual positive energy is sing. When you are humming a song you enjoy, you feel happy and are more present. Think about when you're singing, how that makes you feel. Happiness is contagious. Positivity isn't contagious. So when you are lit up from the inside out, others can feel that. They can sense it. I know there are times when I'm like in a funk and I'm feeling bad. I realize I haven't listened to music lately. And music, I'm all about music. I love music. And so I realize when I get real busy, a lot of times I don't listen to music, and it affects me. And I turn on the music and it can change my mood immediately. And then laugh. When you need to boost your energy for what's next, laugh beforehand. It could be a quick 5-minute laugh, but there's also laughing yoga. And I'm seeing we're running out of time, aren't we? Okay, I'm going to talk fast. Here we go. And then also keep a daily gratitude list. Boost your positivity by focusing on what's positive. You can list 4 things that you're grateful for at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, or even if it's just one. Just start with just one positive thing at the beginning of the day to get you started. And then, of course, deep breathing is key. That helps expel toxic air from your body. It refills your body, and more importantly, your brain with fresh air. So it can literally increase your mental clarity. So practice that. And then this is an energy boost. I love this. This is something that I actually just found online when I was doing some research on positivity and positive energy. Sustaining your energy when your energy is low, you can pause for what is called a snack to boost your energy. It brings back the personal calm and perspective. And so a snack, you can see it on the slide, it stands for stop, notice, accept, curious, and kindness. Stop whatever you're doing and just pause. Notice what's happening within you and around you. Accept this one's a tricky one, but whenever you're struggling with something, it can be time, kids, sleepiness, whatever. Just accept it, that this is the space I'm in right now. It will pass, and I'm pausing, and just accept it. Curious, ground yourself with questions about your experience and environment. What am I feeling? What do I need to do right now? And then kindness. It all ends with kindness. Respond to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others, mistakes and all, with kindness, and observe how that helps you get back on track. So that's a really good tool that I use often. So remember, negativity is contagious. and positivity is contagious. You are the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with. Think about that. If you're spending time with negative people, that can impact you, how you react to people, and how you communicate with people. And then the other quote that I believe this is the last slide is, your inner thoughts aren't truly hidden. They're the essence. Their essence reflects in your energy. Your energy speaks what you don't. So if you have negative thoughts and you have negative energy going on internally, that's going to manifest externally. So I believe that's it. I was trying to blow through it pretty quick, and I think we have a few minutes left, Greg, but I hope we're right on time. I hope everyone enjoyed that.
It was fantastic information, and you know, I don't want to put you in an awkward spot. Are you okay if we go a couple minutes over? I don't know what kind of meetings you have.
Yeah, no, I'm completely fine.
Okay, so for our audience, the people we have here today, we will go just a few minutes past the top of the hour to get questions that you may have. So go ahead, toss those in the chat. We'll also have a list of upcoming webinars for the new 2023 year as well coming up. So it's very interesting. Authority versus leadership. You know, a lot of people, as you said, you know, they look at leaders as the authoritative figure, but they look at authority as leadership, and it can kind of blur. At what point do you kind of blur the two and become an effective leader with authority?
Yeah, I would say, I think people struggle with that all the time because there are so many bosses out there that are not leaders. They are maybe managers managing a group of people, but they aren't inspiring people. They aren't giving people a safe environment. They aren't providing the tools they need to succeed. And so I see a lot of times when I see people that are in authority that are like that, they're actually really, I don't even want to say insecure leaders. They're just insecure people. And so they have their own struggles. And so they're not leaders. They just have risen through authority and with their positions, but they aren't truly if you're leading a group, those people are inspired, they're succeeding, and they trust and respect you. I think that's the key. I think that's probably the litmus test, is the trust and respect.
And I love the fact that you brought up respect, because I think that is key. For everybody asking, we will have not necessarily the slide deck available, but you can watch this presentation as often as you want. We'll have it on our website starting hopefully this afternoon. If not, it'll be first thing tomorrow, so you'll be able to find that. What if an authority figure, I just lost that question. Let me go back to that. What if an authority figure is known to not like happy, quote unquote, happy people, and are focused on letting you know their authority over you?
Find another job. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't know what your environment is there, but I would, if I was in that position, you know what I would probably do? I would probably schedule some time with them and just say, just out of curiosity, I'm really curious why you don't like that. Tell me why you don't like happy people. Why? Because I feel like happiness is a form of positivity, and with positivity becomes productivity. And so I would approach them in not in a non-confrontational way, but more in an inquisitive way. I'm trying to better understand why you say that, because as a leader that I report to, I struggle with that. And so I would just be honest and also approach them in a humble way. And most of the time when people say, again, I feel like that's just an insecurity with that person.
What's the daily book given for positivity?
Yeah, that's why, excuse me, I was looking down, I saw that chat. It's called A Year of Positive Thinking. I found it on Amazon, and it's great. And it's Daily Inspiration by Cindy, Cyndy Spiegel, Spiegel.
Righty. And I'll see if I can't find that to put it in that box. I just found it, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Do you have any advice for introverted leaders?
That's a really good question, because because believe it or not, I'm a very extroverted introvert. People don't know that about me, but usually, like, I'm one of those people. That's hard for you, I know, because as a leader, you have to be visible, and you're setting that tone. So a lot of times people misunderstand people that are introverted. They think that they're withdrawn or they're stoic or they're not personal. And so it's a bigger struggle for people that are more introverts that are leaders, depending on, unless you're managing introverts. But for me, I think my advice would be, again, just be humble and lead with kindness. And I would share with my team, look, I'm a very introverted person. Sometimes my communication style may be misunderstood, and I'm working on that, because I understand that our interpersonal communication is key. So please know that I'm just an introverted person. So if my door's closed or I need some time, that's because that's who I am, and it has nothing to do with you. So that's what I would suggest, is really communicate that with your team. And again, if you as a team are trying to learn more about each other and how your personality is, I highly recommend Enneagram. If you're in an environment where you can devote time on learning about each other and learning about that's who you are, and if you're in that safe space, then the team will accept that, acknowledge it, and then you get to learn more about each other, and you probably have other introverts that understand you. And so the people that report to you will have a better understanding of, this is who I am and this is my personality. So I would suggest some personality conversations with your team as a whole.
I'll go with the 4 questions that I have here, then we'll cut it off just in essence and be respectful of your time. Blurring the line depending on what industry can happen frequently. This person works in aviation. What suggestions do you have when a manager-employee relationship has blurred?
That's so hard. So what suggestions do I have when that's happened? Yep. That's difficult, because when you have that blurred line, and you're saying probably blurred with friendship, what happens is, when I see it, I see that the other coworkers lose respect for that manager or that leader, because it looks like they're playing favorites or favoritism. Whether it's accidental, whether they happen to or not. And so my suggestion would be for that manager to really, whatever that line is blurred, they need to, out of respect for the people that they manage, that there needs to be a clear definition, a delineation between them and the people they work with. You can socialize with your coworkers, you can be friends with them, but there is a boundary that you really shouldn't cross. And so if one's being blurred with one coworker and not the other, what you're really doing is sabotaging your leadership and the people, and you'll start losing respect from your other coworkers. So I would say acknowledge it. And I would even say the person that you blurred the lines with, I would say this, our friendship is going to have to change for the sake of my position. And I would actually own it with the team as well and say, hey, lines have gotten blurred. I know that may cause confusion within the team. I acknowledge that. I apologize for that. And so we're going to adjust and pivot. That would be my advice.
This may be too deep, but what are some results one could expect to see when using effective listening?
Well, when you're using effective listening, you are listening better. And then whatever the goal of that conversation, I feel like the results, you get an optimum result, because if you're effectively listening to what they're saying, if it's a work environment and say you've got a person that reports to you and they're talking to you about a project they're managing and they're having issues with it, you really need to practice those effective listening skills so you can help them with that. They're coming to you as their leader to say, I need help with this. So practicing those listening skills, practicing those effective communication skills, you will be gathering the information you need from that person, and you will hopefully figure out the tools and resources on how you can provide solutions for them. And that's just part of leadership.
I'm guilty of this. You can ask the people that have worked for me, even my kids and possibly my wife. What's your best advice on how to become less distracted when listening?
Put the phone down, turn the TV off, eye contact. It really, and I'm, it's sometimes awkward for me to do this because I'm guilty of all of these things. And it's just a constant practice. So even with my husband, we'll be in that situation and he'll say, you aren't even listening, because I'll be checking, because I'll be multitasking. So my suggestion would be, do not multitask, be in the moment. You go back to that ego awareness. And again, another good book that I mentioned was Eckhart Tolle and The New Earth. But what he talks about is being in that present moment. Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about the past. If you're in that moment, having that conversation with that person, it is all about that moment. And so it's hard. It's hard. It's daily practice of it, but it's about being in that present moment.
I'm not supporting Amazon.com, but I want to be able to get these links out there for the book. I just tossed that in there as well. Final question, then we'll let you go. Where can somebody learn more about communication styles? What resources would you recommend besides watching this webinar over and over and over again?
I go back to that Enneagram. I mean, if that Enneagram is really a personality, but if you're not familiar with Enneagram, it really, there's, I think 9, and it is to me the most on point when you say personality test that I've ever experienced, and it really identifies people by these numbers, but it shows you the type of person they are, the way they communicate, and how you should communicate with them. There's actually some really good books on Enneagram and learning that. So if you, and I think there's actually some free tests on Enneagram online, but if you test and you figure out what your number is, there are books out there too that show you tools and resources on how you communicate with the people that rank in other numbers. And it goes from very extroverted to people to very introverted people. So I would say there's a ton of resources. I would say there's a group out of Chattanooga called the Big Self School. It's a male and female, Shelley and Chad Prevost. We've used them numerous times on some sessions, and they have some great resources on their website about Enneagram, communication styles, and that sort of thing.
Awesome. Fantastic information. It's been a great discussion in the chat. Great information that you've given us. So thank you so much for spending your afternoon, your lunch hour with us, Tracy. And
Sure.
It's been a blessing having you with us.
Thank you. Thanks. I really appreciate everybody listening in, and find me on LinkedIn, Tracy Bennett Smith, and also Make-A-Wish is we have Facebook and Instagram. So follow us. We've got a lot of great things going on.
Awesome. Awesome. And just a reminder, a recording of today's webinar will be uploaded onto our website by tomorrow morning. As an attendee, you will receive an email with the replay link. And be sure to join us for other upcoming webinars this year. On Wednesday, February 15th, come back for Epidemic of Chronic Disease, Infinite Causes with Finite Disease Expressions, as we explore an overview of current thinking for causes driving today's chronic disease epidemic. Then on Tuesday, February 28th, discover why quality sleep is critical for favorable long-term health outcomes during Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, Strategies for Improving Your Sleep. We'll be taking a look at your green thumb on Thursday, March 9th during Preparing Your Houseplants for Spring. Join us as we learn how to liven up your home this spring. And on Tuesday, March 21st, we'll host, I believe, man, I can't speak, I can't communicate, different kind of communication. Superheroes and risk-taking behavior in young children. We'll just throw that out there. We'll explore how the superhero culture can affect our children. And on Thursday, May 4th, come back as we discover why the origins of the wizarding world of Harry Potter, yes, Harry Potter, may not be what you expect during Mischief Managed, the way in which Harry Potter transfixed a generation. For information or to register for these or other webinars, you can visit alumni.uab.edu/events. And while you're here, before you go, let us know how we're going. We want feedback. What did you think about today's webinar, and what would you like to see in the future? The QR code on your screen will take you to a short survey. And once again, thank you so much for joining us today for today's webinar. And as always, go Blazers.